I'd like to encourage you to imagine what each name might sound like when we get to them. There will be many this morning. This is the word of the Lord from Nehemiah 3. Then Eliashib the high priest rose up with his brothers the priests, and they built the sheep gate. They consecrated it, and they set its doors. They consecrated it as far as the Tower of the 100, as far as the Tower of the Hananel, and as next to him the men of Jericho built, and next to them Zachar the son of Imri built. The sons of Hassanah built the fish gate. They laid its beams, they set its doors, its bolts, its bars. And next to them Meremoth, son of Uriah, son of Hakaz, repaired. And next to them Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, son of Meshezabel, repaired. And next to them Zadok, the son of Benah, repaired. And next to them the Tekoites repaired. But their nobles would not stoop to serve their Lord. Joiada, the son of Paseah, the son of Meshullam, the son of Beshoadah, repaired the gate of Yeshanah. They laid its beams, they set its doors, its bolts, its bars, and next to them repaired Maliatai, the Gibeonite, and Jadon, the son of Merathite, the men of Gibeon and Mizpah, the seat of the governor of the province beyond the river. And next to them, Uzziel, son of Hariah, the goldsmiths, repaired. And next to them, Hananiah, one of the perfumers, repaired. And they restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Now next to them, Raphiah, son of Hur, ruler of half the district of Jerusalem, repaired. And next to them, Jediah, the son of Haramath, repaired, opposite his house. And next to him, Hattush, son of Hashbaniah, repaired. Malchijah, the son of Haram, and Hashab, the son of Pahath Moab, repaired another section, and the Tower of the Ovens. And next to him, Shallum, the son of Halohesh, ruler of half the district of Jerusalem, repaired. He and his daughters, Hanan, and the inhabitants of Zanoah repaired the valley gate. They rebuilt it. They set its doors, its bolts, its bars, and they repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the dung gate. Malchijah, the son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth, that word right there, repaired the dung gate. He rebuilt it and set its doors, its bolts, its bars. And Shallum, the son of Kol-Hoesah, ruler of the district of Mizpah, repaired the fountain gate. He rebuilt it, and he covered it, and he set its doors, its bolts, its bars. And he built the wall of the pool of Shelah, the king's garden, as far as the stairs that go down from the city of David. This is the word of the Lord.
You know, there's really 32 verses, Justin. If you had just been a little bit alert, you could have read the other 10,000 names. Thank you. You did a great job. I did ask the mercy rule be applied and that we not read all these names that we can't pronounce at once. But Justin did an awesome job. Now where was I? On July 3rd, we had a storm that came through. I think it hit Ann Arbor on its way to Detroit. But on that day, a huge branch from my neighbor's tree fell on my wood fence and destroyed a good part of that fence. It looked like it would be a serious fix. I was going to hire it done until I heard someone said for repairing or replacing that fence, that's about $6,000. And so I thought I would do a Nehemiah do-it-yourself approach and do it myself, even though repairing would be a monumental test of my handyman skills. After consulting with another neighbor, I went off to Home Depot, where I got expert personalized advice. If you've been at Home Depot, you know that. I'm kidding. The advice was aisle 45 on the left. Once I selected my pieces of pressure-treated fence material, I said, you know, I'm on a roll. I'm going to get some screen and molding for another home improvement project, my screen porch, which had a few holes in the screens. Aisle 33 on the right for the molding, aisle 39 for the screen material. Oh no, there was over 3 different kinds of screen material, and I had no idea which one would actually look like the stuff we were replacing. I picked the least expensive molding and screens, and the one type of screen that looked pretty good. I saved my receipts, for I had about a 10% feeling of adequacy here, no confidence in my ability or my choices. And I had 90% confidence that I would mess the whole darn thing up. I didn't need Tobiah the Ammonite telling me if a fox gets up on that fence, it's going to break down that wall. I have squirrels who chatter about my wobbly fences every time they look at it, so who needs Tobiah? All through the month, I've been thinking that I should have hired it done. The shopping, the repairing of the fences, the repairing of the screens, the placement of the molding. But I'm here to say that given enough time, I got it done. The fence and the full disclosure, I did hire a friend named Ephraim to finish the screen porch job for me. He actually did the whole thing. So that's my summer handyman project completed. Now let's get busy with a greater rebuilding project, which is Knox Church's revitalization. We've been talking about it through Ezra and Nehemiah these several weeks, and I just want to ask, is anyone with me? Are you ready to join the cause? Is anyone ready to say, let's rise and rebuild? More particularly, is anyone ready to follow the lead of Mr. Handyman? Or if not me, the next man up, Mr. Dan Kloss, on whom we are going to place the mantle of leadership in the not-too-distant future. The rebuilding of Knox as a spiritually healthy, growing, protected community so that it might once again have a vibrant impact on this community is going to take all of us. We all must contribute to that, using our skills and our physical abilities, our financial support, our spiritual commitments, our will, and our heart. The Jerusalem Wall Project was a model of partnership in which people did just those kinds of things. And so I want to urge you to rise up and build, to become part of the true do-it-yourself Jerusalem rebuilding of the walls, Ann Arbor rebuilding of Knox Church on Wagner Road. So this wall building project covers much of the middle chapters of the book of Nehemiah. We may look at the project under 3 headings. It's very basic. The wall building gets underway or commences as diverse groups of people cooperate under the leadership of Nehemiah. That's what I'll spend most of my time on. Then secondly, the wall building continued with swords and trowels and trumpets mixed together in the face of opposition. And finally, Nehemiah 6, the wall building was completed with the help of our God. So let's jump into Nehemiah chapter 3 with all these wonderful names. The wall building commences as a diverse group of people cooperated under the leadership of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah was prepared to lead the wall building project from the very start. He came in prayer with authority and material from Persia. He did the hard work of surveying the problem by going around the city in secret during the late night to assess the situation. He then met with the officials and described the problem and invited them to respond. He said, "Come, let's build the walls of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer derision, that is, we will no longer be in disgrace or in scorn or abuse." I don't know if any of you knew this, but on February 14th, I wrote a letter, and I sent it out to all sorts of folks that said Knox has a bad reputation, or a reputation problem, and we want to right the record and encourage the search committee and encourage all the people who are wondering when and if we would rise up and have a rebuilt or revitalized church. So that the disgrace, the derision, the scorn has been endured by you for these 2 years, but now we are at the end of it. Praise the Lord. There are a lot of ways that Nehemiah motivated people. He told his story of his approval by the king of Persia. It was a testimony of what that God was on the move when he came and assessed the problem and then cast a vision and then proposed decisive action. These were all part of his resume and all part of the things that made him the motivational leader of this flock. One commentator said about Nehemiah, he was clearly a shaker, a mover, and a doer. And in response to his vision, many people signed up in groups. And I would imagine you are in some group as part of this church family. Some of you are in community groups, some of you are in women's groups, some in men's groups, some in college groups, young adult groups, there's prayer groups, there's other kinds of people that get together for a variety of things. But imagine if all of you were united around one revitalization renewal project, and it was the health of Knox Church. So here's the list of the people. The first work team to sign up consisted of the high priest with his brothers and the priests, and then the Levites, temple servants, and other priests. Now, the high priest's participation signaled that this was a spiritual people, and this was spiritual work, and so all the returned exiles should get the point that this is not just manual labor. This actual rebuilding is a work of God for God's people. The Levites were originally the tabernacle setup team, the musicians and singers and the assistants who participated in the sacrifices. That was their job. Their leadership in rebuilding the wall should answer the question about whether pastors or assistant pastors or musicians or worship leaders or Christian ed directors or children's ministry people should ever work up a sweat. John White addresses the issue of work by spiritual leaders with godly and practical, and I would say whimsical wisdom. In his classic book, Excellence in Leadership, he says, spirituality is no substitute for sweat. Prayer may move mountains, but prayer and elbow grease are wonderful allies. They make projects hum. He goes on and says, at some point, we were advised, perhaps rightly, to take good care of our health. But health can sometimes be a peevish old woman. Now, I'm not looking at any of you ladies in the congregation right now, especially the peevish ones. Are you tied to that peevish old woman's apron strings? White goes on, your health should be your servant, not your mistress. Do not run away from work to preserve your health. Preserve your health so you will be able to work. That's John White's practical advice. But many others also joined, not only the high priest and the priests and the Levites, the men of Jericho and Tekoa and Gibeon and Mizpah are listed. Now, who are they? They are people from the surrounding villages, and there may be as many as 14 towns surrounding Jerusalem where people lived. They'd been living there since Ezra came back, or since Zerubbabel brought them back even before Ezra. So we're going to see later about why they were living outside of Jerusalem and what could be done about that. But just to note that if you're a suburbanite, it's okay for you to live in the city. If you have a nice place out there, it's okay to come back regularly and say to the people of God in this particular place, how can I help? And then find your place and get involved in it. Let the first ones who have come in from different exurbs and suburbs into Knox be the model for the rest of you who might otherwise say, well, you know, I'm getting a little bit more distant from that group of people, and I'm not sure that they need me, or I'm a little too old for that, or my health is failing. No, if your name is on the roster, your name ought to be in Nehemiah chapter 3. The next group of workers includes many sons. I keep marking up the text in my Bible or the copies that I make of this text, and I believe I counted between 25 and 30 sons identified in this text, and then one daughter. So here's the message. The sons of Hasanet, you know, Justin read them perfectly. The son of Uriah, the son of Hakaz, son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabel, etc., for 25 or 30 times. And then the son of Halosheth, he and his daughters repaired. Now, what does that tell you? Well, here's an interesting thing. I read the list, and I began to tune into something I had just read on Facebook about a week ago, and it had to do with the Harvard University longitudinal study about the key markers or predictors of success in children. It actually started with a group of sophomores at Harvard University, and this group was followed for the next 50 years of their lives. The longitudinal study is in its 85th year. At the beginning of the study, it seemed like the clear thing that they were expecting was that nature, a person's nature, his DNA, if they thought about DNA in 1926, or genetics, or something that you got from your parents was going to be the basis of your succeeding. And some of these people did succeed because of that. Actually, one of the first people in the study was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He did all right, became president, unfortunately cut off short, but that's a guy that was quite successful. And then there's a guy named Bill Bradley. He became the editor of the well-respected Washington Post. They also said there's a few schizophrenics in the group, so it wasn't all successful people. Even though they had all started out at Harvard, they'd gotten their degrees, and they were off and running into the world. So later on, after the first leader of this study got done with his part, they moved it on to another person, and they began to notice that it's not just your nature, it's not just your makeup, it's your nurture that makes a difference. And so they talked about relationships quite a bit over the next leader's efforts to identify the predictors of success. But finally, they reduced it to this thing that was the headline I noticed as I was on my cell phone the other day, and it was the great marker of success is that children are asked to do chores as children. Chores. Now, how simple is that? It was the great predictor. It connects the hemispheres of the brain. It builds self-reliance. It builds problem-solving and resilience into people. It builds emotional intelligence. When chores are done in community, that's back to the relational nurturing side, it builds relationships, and that leads to a longer and happier life. And by the way, loneliness is the predictor of short and unsuccessful life. And guess where we are today in our culture? We are one of the loneliest places we've ever been as a culture. So parents, I want to just give you this little admonition on my way to listing all the people that were involved in this. There's a lot of sons and a daughter that did chores. So what are you doing with your children? Not only chores at home, but what about wall-building chores in the community of God's people in this church? This is going to be one of the great predictors of our success going forward. Now, it's not just sons and daughters. It's not just religious people, leaders like priests and Levites who participate. There's also an interesting filtering in of different other kinds of people. There are artisans, tradesmen, craftsmen engaged in the wall project, a goldsmith, a perfumer, and a merchant, and a district representative. That sounds awfully like a politician to me. And they all worked together on the wall. It's not so much your background, you see. It's your surveying of what lies in the foreground and your willingness to pitch in to improve things that will indicate the changing of the culture and the building and rebuilding of God's church. So how many groups were there? Well, I've counted 39 individuals listed and 42 different groups. I'm not sure how those numbers correlate with each other, but just take my word for it. And no, be careful about that. That's come to think of it. But here's some interesting facts to add on. Some of these people built, rebuilt, or repaired. The verbs change. Some of them did it just in front of their homes. That's good. If you live on the wall of the city, if you live in that kind of place, you ought to participate there. Now, others extended their labor along the wall and took on a second section of the project. I read about one group that had started with the Valley Gate, and then they went on for 1,000 cubits. A cubit is from your elbow to the tip of your fingers, and if that's 18 inches, so it's half a yard, these people did more than a quarter mile of rebuilding the wall. Remember, it's filled with rubble. It's got problems. It's not going to be an easy task. These people dedicated themselves and completed 450 meters of that hard work. The phrases as far as, or another section, or 1,000 cubits, these are words of commendation to the hard-working people of the church. They cleared rubble, they raised blocks, they decided how to take into account the difficulties they encountered among them. Others repaired gates. I've noticed that there are 10 gates in all: the sheep gate, the valley gate, the water gate, the gate of Yeshana, the dung gate, the fountain gate, the horse gate, the east gate, the muster gate, the inspection gate. And as I dug a little deeper, I found that the descriptions go in counterclockwise from the sheep gate on the northeast side all the way around until the last verse in the chapter brings us back to the sheep gate. So every gate had to be rebuilt. Remember, they'd been torn down and burned with fire. And so I think it might have been actually pretty sophisticated work, a little tougher than your average laborer. So someone lays the beams, another sets its doors, someone put the bolts in, someone puts the bars. It's a group project, and it is a difficult project. So between the people who just have your general labor ability and then the specialists, they are working hard. Apparently, skilled labor is still a very valuable thing. When we look at the project, we might ask us, well, how coordinated was it? I mean, did everybody just go out and do their own thing? And honestly, sometimes churches live in silos, and some people are doing this kind of thing over here, some doing this over here, some doing this one, some following this guy, that guy, another person, and it's just kind of it's a potpourri, whatever you want to do. But somehow, I think that Nehemiah's plan was more coordinated than we would first of all noticed. The answer is the wall building had to take into account a variety of things that would interrupt the smooth rebuilding of all these sections between gates. There were tombs, there were towers, there were pools, there were corners, there were gardens, there were walls, there were buttresses, there were gates, and there were stairways along the wall. So someone had to, step back and say, "Whoa, what's going on here? And how do we manage this engineering problem?" The willing workers were valuable, no doubt, but foremen and supervisors to oversee, engineers to coordinate, these are invaluable assets. And if any of you have some of those leadership gifts, obviously God wants to use you. He doesn't want you to say, "Well, I do that 40 hours a week." No, he probably has some place for you within the community of God. And that's where I just loved listening to Dave Hughes a few weeks ago speaking from an engineering point of view. And he talked about the weight of the blocks and the rubble, just all sorts of fascinating things that I would never have thought of myself. But there he was, just working away on these practical engineering issues. Okay, then we notice a variety of words that are repeated, and you didn't get the full impact of it from Justin's reading because, when I've preached this text before or taught it in class, I've read it out loud and asked people, I want you to count how many times the word "next" is offered. If you're doing the study guide, you'll be asked that same question. The answer is 15 times. He was working next to this person. They were working next to these people. These were working next to that person. And if you got tired of Nehemiah's recording of the word "next," there's another word that's repeated 15 times, and it is "after them." And I think it's about the same thing. So there are 30 coordinated groups that are working next to each other and after them, adjoining them, beyond them, opposite them. The project was well coordinated. I started out my summer after my freshman year of college looking for a summer job, and I was lucky enough to get a job as what was then called a hod carrier. That is a guy that puts the mortar on the board and put the bricks in a row so that the bricklayers can build a beautiful building. And we were at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and I watched these people all summer, and the next summer I was unable to find a job, and so my dad said, "Well, we're trying to build a lake place, and there's a guy that's working for Time and Materials, and it's not going very fast. So would you help him out?" And so I supplied stuff for him, and then I got this brainstorm. I have watched bricklayers for a whole summer, and that doesn't look like hard work. Now, I know how to mix the mortar. I know how to put it on and we've got the supply of bricks, so why don't I just assume that's my job on the wall? It's the basement wall. It kind of gets more prominent as you kind of look out toward the lake. But I did my very best work until my sister walked from the back of the house on the path down to the lake and said, "Dave, every time I look at it, those bricks are waving at me." You may not understand that, but that means that the courses were going like that. That's because I didn't use this string, and I didn't attach it to both ends. I said, it looks good to me. It didn't look good to her. I hope you're drawing a few applications already. Spiritual leaders are welcome to and should serve as wall builders and get sweaty with the rest. Second, sons and daughters should be invited to come along. Artisans and merchants have a place in the renewal work of God. For that matter, professors and teachers and CEOs and entry-level employees should notice and coordinate with each other next to them. And doctors and nurses and orderlies may find a place if they will just offer themselves. Just after Marcia and I moved into Detroit, we discovered that Life Remodeled was working in central Detroit on a huge grade school that they were going to take over. And they wanted to not only bless the community with a repurposed building, but they wanted to bless all the neighbors around. So they invited people from corporations, they invited people from the suburbs, they invited people nearby in the city to join arms. There were probably liberals and conservatives up on the wall, gathering, working on this building, on this school, and then working in the neighborhoods, mowing lawns. I was one of them, but I never asked, are you my kind of person? Or are you on the other team? Are you the kind of person, that would want to go to my church, or are you not So we just worked together. And it was a wonderful phenomena. If you don't know anything about Life Remodel, you ought to make a note to check on the Work of Life Remodel. It's an amazing organization. They have 2 hubs in this city, and the original leader of that group has now moved down to Charlotte, and he's starting a second one. And he's also coordinating nonprofit organizations with a book that he's written and a training program that he offers. It's getting together and working with other people. Because of the Work of Life Remodel, the crime has just declined in central Detroit by Central High School. Hope is building. People are getting together. It is an amazing thing when the whole fellowship, the whole community is going in the same direction for the very same purpose. Now, I have one more thing to say, and I think I'm pretty much out of time, so I'm going to end with this. Try avoiding getting your names in the minutes as the non-involved. Note the comment made in verse 5, the comment made about the nobles of Tekoa, they would not stoop to serve the Lord. Ouch. Ouch. Instead of that, will you respond with me to the already engaged leaders and say with your work gloves on, let us rise and rebuild. I have an invitation for you to close. On August 30th, we are going to have a leadership roundtable at 11:15 in the sanctuary. If you are involved in leadership in a formal or in an informal way, or if you would like to sign up to be one of the workers on the wall on the rebuilding of this church, I invite you to come. The only requirement is that the Lord speaks to your heart and you want to be part of a team that is used to rebuild this community known as Knox Church. Now, if you want the box lunch, you have to sign up for it, and you should sign up within the next week. August 30th, 11:15 till 12:30. We're going to be together for a half hour, and then we're going to split up into subgroups that are participating in one way or the other. It's time for all of us to get underway. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, it's such a joy to be part of this community, to see it come together, one group after another. Families with their sons and daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, participating in the wonderful work of renewal in this church. Thank you again for the Pastor Search Committee, its own group, that had that leadership responsibility of finding the Nehemiah that would come and participate and gather with us and call us forward. But thank you again for every group, every family, everyone who's called to the rebuilding of this church. May your will be done in this church. To the glory of God, I pray. Amen.